The chronometer on Connaught's wrist displayed Oro 347 when the atmospheric pressure sensors triggered their first alert. He sat upright in his sleeping pod aboard station Kepler 442, his neural implant already processing the anomaly. Something had breached the outer hull's quantum field without setting off a single proximity alarm. By the time he reached the airlock, frost patterns were crystallizing across the reinforced viewport. Through the ice-webbed glass, Connaught saw her, a being that defied every xenobiological classification in humanity's database. She stood nearly 3 meters tall, her exoskeleton shifting between states of matter like liquid mercury frozen mid-cascade. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed beneath her translucent carapace, forming what his implant's pattern recognition software identified as a complex mathematical language. The airlock cycled open without his authorization. "Dr. Kenneth Veros," the entity spoke, her voice resonating through multiple frequency ranges simultaneously. His implant struggled to synthesize the harmonics into comprehensible speech. "Your research on cross-species genetic compatibility has not gone unnoticed." Connaught's hand instinctively moved toward the plasma cutter on his belt. "How do you know my name? Station defenses should have—" "Your defenses operate on electromagnetic principles. I do not." She moved forward, and Connaught noticed 2 smaller figures behind her. They were humanoid in structure but shared their mother's otherworldly qualities: skin that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, eyes that held galaxies within their depths. "I am Matriarch Silenthra of the Varelian Convergence. These are my daughters, Orla and Mireille." The 2 young beings stepped forward, their movements uncertain, almost childlike despite their alien physiology. Connaught's scientific mind raced through impossible calculations. The Varelian Convergence. He'd encountered references to them in fragmentary data recovered from the derelict ship near Proxima Centauri, a civilization that existed partially outside conventional spacetime, their technology indistinguishable from what humanity called magic. "Why are you here?" Connaught asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Silenthra's bioluminescence shifted to deeper wavelengths. "Our species faces extinction, not from war or disease, but from our own evolution. We have transcended biology so thoroughly that we are losing the ability to reproduce. My daughters represent the last generation born through natural means." She gestured toward Orla and Mireille. "But they cannot survive in my realm any longer. The higher dimensional frequencies are degrading their cellular structures. They need to exist in your universe, your timeline, your linear causality." "You want me to raise them?" Connaught's laugh was sharp with disbelief. "I'm a xenobiologist, not a—" "You are more than that." Silenthra's voice carried absolute certainty. 3 years from now, you will publish groundbreaking research on hybridization between carbon-based and silicon-based life. 5 years after that, you will develop the first successful transgenic organism capable of surviving in both standard and non-Euclidean space. I have seen these timelines. Connaught felt his certainty crumbling. "If you can see the future, then you know—" "I know that without intervention, my species ends. And I know that in one specific timeline, the one where you accept this burden, something remarkable happens." Silenthra's patterns intensified. "When I return, I want my grandchildren, the offspring of my daughters, raised in the crucible of your dimension, carrying genes that bridge our realities." "That's impossible," Connaught protested. "The biological incompatibilities alone are your life's work to solve." Silenthra turned to her daughters, communicating in rapid-fire bioluminescent pulses. Orla, the taller of the 2, met Connaught's eyes. In that moment, his neural implant registered something extraordinary. She was broadcasting on human-compatible frequencies, deliberately limiting herself to exist more fully in his reality. "Please," Orla said. her voice perfectly human, perfectly desperate. "We don't want to fade into the between spaces." Mireille remained silent, but her bioluminescence carried a similar plea in wavelengths that made Kanat's eyes water. Silenthra pulled a crystalline device from a fold in space-time itself. "This contains our complete genetic blueprint, as well as technological specifications that will advance human science by centuries. Consider it payment. Consider it bribery. I care not which." She placed the device in Kanat's trembling hand. The crystal felt simultaneously hot and cold, solid and gaseous. "How long?" Kanat asked quietly. "How long until you return? Time is not linear for my kind. For you it will be approximately 35 of your years. For me—" Her patterns flickered with something that might have been sadness. "I must venture into the deep void, where dimensions collapse into singularities. I go to seek a cure for our transcendence, a way to anchor my people back into existence. The time dilation will be extreme. And if I fail? If there are no grandchildren when you return?" Silenthra's response was simple and terrifying. "Then you will have watched my daughters die, and my species will follow them into extinction. The weight of 2 civilizations rests on your shoulders, Dr. Veros." She stepped back toward the airlock, her form already beginning to phase out of conventional reality. "Orla Mireille, remember what I taught you. Remember how to be solid, how to be real." The 2 young beings moved to stand beside Kanat, their bioluminescence dimming, their forms stabilizing into something more concretely 3-dimensional. "I will return," Silenthra said, her voice echoing from multiple time frames at once, "and I will want to hold my grandchildren." Then she was gone, leaving behind only a faint ozone smell and 2 alien daughters on Kanat's doorstep. Orla looked up at him with eyes that were learning to reflect light instead of generating it. "We will try not to be too much trouble," she said softly. Kanat looked at the crystalline device in his hand, then at the 2 beings who would reshape his entire existence. Somewhere in his mind, the scientist was already working through genetic sequencing problems, compatibility matrices, the sheer audacity of what Silenthra had asked. But in his heart, he felt something simpler and more human. He felt like a father who had just been handed an impossible task by an entity that terrified and awed him in equal measure. "Come on," he said finally, gesturing toward the station's living quarters. "Let's figure out what you can eat that won't phase through your digestive systems." Mireille's bioluminescence flickered with what might have been amusement. Behind them, the station's sensors detected a brief gravitational anomaly 35 light-years away. A ripple in space-time that would take decades to reach them, marking the beginning of Silenthra's journey into the deep void. The countdown had begun,